Cool. Okay. So welcome everybody. And yeah, I just want to quickly touch on some of the things that are going on nationally. I don't know if everyone's been following the Instagram, but there's quite a bit of movement nationally. Cory Booker has sponsored an amendment on the right to try bill that will allow people to consume psilocybin or essentially any other like breakthrough therapy kind of medicine in their palliative exploration as they're transitioning, and so that's something that's huge, and that's hitting the national scene. And then Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and a couple other people have also been working with a group to basically create or deschedule MDMA and psilocybin so that they can be used as medicines in the near future. And the inside information, I can't remember which conversation we had now that really tipped us off to that, was that may happen within the next 2 years. So that's at the federal level, which is really exciting. So if that the whole nation unveils those medicines, then I think that the states will follow suit very quickly. So let's see, now we're on committee reports and IT, communications, marketing, and branding. Is that Linda? Are you gonna dial us in, or Ruchi, did you want to?
Yeah, I mean, I can quickly summarize what we talked about in the last meeting. So we did discuss, one of the first things is Discord, and we decided, we took a little survey, sent it out to the group, and Discord was the most, the choice. So Linda will today walk us through Discord. Once we have that, it will be helpful to kind of talk through other changes. I know that Kevin made some changes, some notes for the website. We still have to make some of those changes. We made minor changes like updating the correct email on the website, making sure that the emails are going to the right address when people are sending the requests and things like that. The pamphlet, I know that that's something that we needed like yesterday. So I made one prototype, but again, as the content creation team, we probably need to sit down again and think through what information we should put on there. So I can actually send it to somebody who can share what I have right now.
Oh, there you go.
Email it to you, or can you let me into Zoom so I can probably just screen share?
Oh, sure. That works. Yeah.
How would somebody get to the Zoom from the email?
I think the link is at the top of the email. The one where we sent out the agenda. Oh, that's what. And I'm gonna share mine, so it's gonna kick you out for a second.
In the interim, just to let people know that there's lemonade back there. There's the Scotty freshly made today. There's some nuts and little cups to put them in, and there's water, fresh water, and that orange board.
Okay, for some reason, it won't let me share my screen. So I'm just gonna have to put it in the chat for people to access.
Linda, then pull it up and share it.
Yeah.
Linda, once you get it in the chat, can you share it?
to her an email so she doesn't have to put it up.
I think we all got really good at doing Zoom meetings. And then we look forward to having in-person meetings, but these hybrid meetings always have little.
Where's sending it, Richie?
I think she's emailing it to
Emailing
you,
it to
Linda,
you.
but if you wanna, yeah.
Yeah,
I emailed it to myself, but it's not like showing up for some reason.
but it's okay, I just
Well,
sent it, you should have it now. But I mean, we can, like, I mean, this is just a very basic one with the same information, I just changed the graphic. It has the email, Instagram.
Is it the ones that you sent me yesterday?
No.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
You should have it.
That is Timmy barking. He wants my attention.
Okay.
Can somebody send the Zoom link to a long?
Oh, I can't. Would help if I moved that out of the way, right? Where did you send it, Richie? You emailed it?
Yeah.
This is how we need this.
Oh, there it is, okay.
Once we have this for
Oh, there it
this
is.
communication will be, and again, there's placeholders.
Wait,
So this will be a postcard thing?
Kind
Okay.
This is gonna be the outreach tool, right? So that when we're all out in the world, we'll have something. When we're talking to people and they say, well, how do I get involved? And then this is the thing.
Yeah, and we
Okay.
can have like at the back, this is just a replica, in terms of content, a replica of what we had. In the back, we can add more information. On research, the QR code, we can place like right where that little area is.
Yeah, well, and I think essentially like anything that we put out, yes, should have some information on it, but really as a vehicle for a QR code, because most people are just gonna scan it, and then wherever that we send them to is gonna be what really has the content that we want them to see. So that's where we can really flush it out with the research, with, you know, why people should start thinking about this issue, why it's important that people have access to the medicine and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like, I think, you know, basically just having something that, you know, drives people to like be able to click on it or whatever.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay. So yeah, we can like, we can work on streamlining this. Once we have Discord, people will be able to like actively talk about, hey, like, these are the things we can change. And so, yeah, we can talk about Discord next and,
Cool.
wait, I really like this, Richie.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I feel like this part here though.
Yeah, I want to trim and just want to have the circle, but
Like
yeah.
turn it into a PNG file, right?
Well, was it, maybe I sent you the wrong file because there is one with just the circle.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I only got the other one.
Okay,
so-
then yeah.
Is there a way to take this out?
Yeah, we can take this off. Like I was. using-
Sorry, I couldn't, the dog was just barking, I couldn't hear you.
Yeah.
Yep. So Linda, if you want to show us Discord.
Yeah. Go away. All right, well. Let me move this here. Okay, so. Okay, I'm just gonna like show you guys. So just go to discord.com and if you need to, I mean, if you don't have Discord yet, and you need to make an account, oh wait.
Can we talk a bit about why we're looking at Discord, so that everybody is on the same page?
What?
Why we're looking at.
What's that?
Do you mind if we talk for a second about why we're looking at Discord, so that we get everybody on the same page?
Oh, sure. Okay, yeah. So we did that vote and I guess the majority, like as Ruchi said, they voted on Discord. And I don't think everyone participated in the survey, but we were looking for like just like a way that everyone could gather, besides email, to just like stay in touch and communicate. And Discord just seemed, I guess, to be the best option for that, because it gives us like the ability to create different channels for like specific topics, or like for the committees, and it keeps everything kind of organized, and we can also use it to do video calls, to do like just voice calls, and it's a way too that people who are not in NYPAC or a part of like this group, it's like, I don't know, say like your cousin wants to like learn about it or learn about what we're doing. They live in like some other state or whatever, I don't know. They can easily just like join, and they can look at what we're talking about. They can participate if they want. And there's a way to just like kind of to limit what certain people put in. So if like some person, like your cousin, say they want to join the Discord, we can limit their access so that they can't like post on everything. They can just kind of see like what's going on, like maybe in the NYPAC section. Or if they want to add like a testimonial, they can do that through here. I've made a community channel, just maybe like for people to just chat freely. Yeah.
So I think one of the things that we should do too is, like, Kabir is a guest speaker tonight. We could also kind of create stuff right here in Discord that could then share some information. And I mean,
yeah, we can even do like I can add a channel on here, like on the voice channel for like a guest speaker to come, and like we can like send out like an invite to the members, to whoever, and they can just like join in and just like listen, or ask questions if they have any.
Yeah, because so basically when I managed a performing arts center, and we ran an event through Discord during that transition time before I was furloughed, and we were still trying to do things because we didn't know how long the whole lockdown was going to last. And the Discord allowed us to have our production meetings still, our IT meetings, and everything could happen simultaneously, so that people could hop in and out, and you can have voice channels and text chats. And so the artist transitioned what he was going to present into something that could be participated in through Discord. So like the whole event kind of happened through Discord too, because you could store files, you could run video. So it is a pretty robust system, so that if we can, really explore into this, it is a great way to keep a database of information, as well as all the communication that can happen. So that's
2 questions. Can this displace Zoom?
yes.
And can you, Linda, restrict a whole channel from the public so that only the legislative committee? Okay.
Are you just gonna let like public people who can invite only?
Well, it's up to us.
I think each channel can have its
Well, we
different parameters.
What
Like
was that question?
yeah.
Robert asked if just the public would be able to get into Discord.
Just the public?
Well,
What do you
I
mean?
mean, the
We could
answer
set up
is,
some channels for that.
Yeah,
We could set up a channel separately just for the public.
like this community channel could be for that, or you could rename it to public access or whatever.
yeah, and this can be, we direct people to NYMA. So say they find the national, New Yorkers for Mental Health Alternatives, and it says join our Discord channel. And then if someone clicks on that, it goes to wherever we want to direct it. And then if they start to like get more involved and they say, oh, I want to join whatever community, then we say, okay, now you have access to that. So up until that point, they don't even see it in their list of things that, you know, is available to them.
The only reason I asked is I'm a member of a couple of different Discord channels, and if it's open to the public, you're gonna need a lot of active moderation because you're gonna be going people and they're trying to sell everybody drugs at the end.
Yeah, true.
Well, there will be moderators. We'll have to figure out who is willing to become a moderator. So, and also, I was in the process right now of creating a rules channel that lists the rules of the server, and people have to agree to them before they have access to anything in the server. And yeah, so there are things in place on Discord that make sure that people are like doing, you know, kosher things.
Cool.
That's great.
Yeah.
So the other thing is, I think Aaron Ganuth from Decriminalized Nature, who I hoped would be on this call, he offered to do a tutorial, but I think Discord also offers a tutorial. Or Linda, if you want to do a tutorial, we could probably record it on Discord and like, could that be available to people, right?
Right, I think so, yes.
But I think Discord has a little tutorial, like when you go to join it. I mean, I've never been on it, but I'm excited to learn.
Yeah, it's and it's intuitive. So once you get into it and start like kind of poking around, it's pretty easy to manipulate. I mean, I haven't played with it for 2 years now, but I remember going like, what is this thing? And I don't like technology. And then going like, okay.
And what it does, right, Linda, is it displaces the need to go find that email.
Correct.
You know, and like all the different email threads that everybody has, like you don't have to worry about that anymore because it's all right there. Is that right?
Yeah.
Also, just want to mention, I believe there's an app for your phone as well for Discord. So it makes it really easy on the go.
Cool.
There's an app, yeah.
So what's the plan? Are we gonna invite everybody who's on our mailing list to join the Discord now? Everybody who's in our membership? And that'll happen, what, like tomorrow?
I mean,
Yeah, I don't know.
is the Discord ready for that?
Oh, yeah, I say it is. There's just like, I mean, I don't know if do you want me to like get this rules channel set up? Because I just learned how to do this. Do you think like everyone that's in NYPAC, they will like keep it cool? And then I can set it up like before we
open it to the public. I think the people that are part of our group
Yeah.
right now, I totally feel comfortable. I mean, David, but I totally feel comfortable, you know, inviting everybody
Okay.
to it. But like, yeah, like you said, before and that's a good trial too. It's like, oh, you know, all of us, we're kind of vetted already. You know, we can play around with it and then see if, you know, we can break it or whatever. And then, you know, we just kind of make sure it works before we say, hey, everybody, it's on our website and you can get into this and join the conversation. Because ultimately, I do think that that's something that we want to do, because if it's on our website, if it's on Instagram, if it's on Facebook, you know, and all those things, oh, I can join this right now and see if people are in there. Because that's the other thing that Discord allows is like, you know, Amy might be, you know, up at 2 o'clock in the morning and she's like, I'm just going to go on Discord. And then suddenly like Josh is tuning in and Corinne, and you guys have a conversation about like, you know, planning the next thing. And, you know, just because it's kind of like a room and it's a house with different rooms. So like I'm in the legislative room, I'm in the IT room.
And we can lock those rooms as well, by the way.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So like,
is it possible to make it so that it's just like say a forum board, but people can't really type? You know what I mean? Like people can't comment or anything like that.
Yes.
It's just like a place to go,
Yes.
get information, and that way we don't really have to worry about anybody trying.
Yeah. So see, I'll just like show you real quick.
The cache of everything.
Correct.
I'll just show you real quick on here. So this is the IT communications channel. And on here, there's the permissions and, oh wait, this isn't a good one to show you, sorry, hang on. The advisory one, for example, this one, yes, thank you. So the advisory, this is only accessible, like everything is accessible only for the board members. So they can view the channel, they can't manage the channel, but because that's like up to like an admin or the moderators. But they are allowed to do all these other things over here. So yes, there's a way to, and when you look at everyone else, they only can view the channel and add reactions to things, which means just like an emoji, basically, and read like the entirety of like the message history. So they can't do anything else. They can't comment. They can only see things. I mean, and add a reaction, I guess, but I can easily turn that off.
Cool. All right, so just for brevity's sake, I mean, I feel like Discord is a great tool. And I think if we need any other like discussion or whatever, maybe we have it in our, after we invite everybody and we can say, hey, learn about Discord in Discord.
And then hopefully people won't be saying, why aren't we using Slack?
So there will be some kind of tutorial because intuitive is a slippery concept.
Yeah.
What's intuitive?
Once you get on Discord, you're gonna discover all of these other servers that you can get with.
What's Linda saying?
What?
Linda, say it again.
Once you start using Discord, you're gonna like look up other Discord servers that like match your interests, and you're gonna just like love Discord. You're gonna join like 80 of them.
80.
Well, I hope not. That's a good sales. I'm actually wondering whether we want to check in with Kabir and maybe interrupt our committee report.
Yeah, because we're already at 8:30. Kabir, did you have to? 8:40.
It depends how long you want to do questions for and whatnot. I do have to go around 9:15, 9:20.
Okay, why don't we just jump to him?
Yeah, let's do that. And then were you done? Was the action
Yeah, I
committee
think
done?
okay.
Because we can save the legislative report and the events and fundraising to after Kabir. Cool.
So Linda, can you stop sharing your screen, please?
Well, I don't think we want to waste time introducing Kabir because we sent out his bio, but I am so excited that he's agreed to join us tonight. Avery and I had a wonderful conversation with him a couple of weeks ago. He's got on-the-ground experience with passing laws and also in working on the clinical side in Canada. So we are lucky to have him, and we're lucky to have him as a New Yorker. And let's just hear from him, and we'll have some questions afterwards.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to join you all. Next time I'll certainly have to try and make it up in person. Before I get into, I guess, and I'll mainly be focusing on my time in Oregon and then my time in Canada and the legislative work there, but I'm happy to talk a little bit about the training side of work I've done as well. But first, I'd like to just kind of go over what I've been working on currently. So right now, I split my time between Therasol and the Beckley Institute. For those of you that aren't familiar, Therasol is primarily founded as an advocacy organization to expand access to psilocybin therapy for palliative cancer patients. It has since moved into training for psychedelic therapists in this last year, with over 200 therapists trained, and in the last couple of months has moved into treatment. Through the advocacy work, new legal pathways have been opened up in Canada through pretty limited circumstances that I'll get into later. The other side of things is Beckley, which is a training, treatment, and clinical research organization, and I'm helping them come up with their training modules for their training program, doing some copywriting there. So like I mentioned, the two aspects, I guess, of my work I'd like to focus on the most is my time in Oregon, working on the Measure 109 campaign, and my time in Canada working with Aerosol. So both of these initiatives were basically, or both of these organizations, when I initially started working with them, were focused on expanding access to legal psilocybin therapy. In Oregon, I'll start with Oregon. The measure that passed there successfully was in the works for many, many years. The two folks that wrote it were working on it for more than 4 years before it was ever really put before the eyes of any legislators or any people in Oregon outside of a select few. Multiple stages of revision and consultation before it was initially submitted as Initiative 34. The purpose of the bill from the get-go was to create legal access to psilocybin therapy for anyone in need. And so, yeah, again, just to clarify, this wasn't a broad legalization of psilocybin therapy, but the focus was on the therapeutic use of psilocybin. And as the bill was written, there was an initial version that included the decriminalization of psilocybin in that bill. And at one point that was revised to remove decriminalization, which caused a pretty big reaction from the community that we were working with. And a lot of people were curious, why would you remove that? There's a lot of suspicious, I guess, apprehension at that. Is this some sort of consolidated power grab for Big Pharma to come in and monopolize psilocybin therapy? And the answer is no. The reason decriminalization was removed from Measure 109 is because Measure 110 was proposed, and Measure 110 decriminalized personal possession of basically all drugs. And that was on the same docket as Measure 109. We worked closely with the Measure 110 team. We collaborated with them, exchanged campaign materials, shared each other's posts on social media. We both people on both teams wanted both bills to pass. That was the goal, and that was the main reason decriminalization was removed. It still kind of begs the question, and it certainly did for many people, why doesn't this bill include gifting and growing? Why is it only focused on therapeutic access? And the answer is pretty simple. Prior to submitting the initiative, it was done through a ballot system. We had to collect a certain number of ballots on the initiative for it to then go forward to a vote. And before any of that happened, we worked with a company that did focus group polling. And so we would have groups of folks over the course of multiple months come in and answer a variety of questions about psilocybin therapy, about just their general views on different issues related to health and wellness. And the conclusion we consistently came to was that traditionally moderate or conservative leaning voters really would not say yes to any bill that didn't include specific regulation surrounding the use of psilocybin. And what that meant is that people wanted to hear that it was in a therapeutic context. They wanted to hear that it was a new medicine. And it was especially important to folks that it wasn't considered recreational, and that they were sure that it wouldn't fall into the hands of underage people, that their kids wouldn't be buying mushrooms on the corner and taking them. And that's what we consistently heard from what were basically our swing voters. Most of the voters that came from a more liberal left-leaning perspective were already on board with this. They didn't need much convincing. They didn't need much explanation. And so for this to pass in Oregon, we really needed to target people in the middle who had never really heard of psilocybin, or if they did, it had been many, many years. Maybe they saw it on 60 Minutes or something, but they didn't really know about it. And for them, they wanted to see it as a breakthrough medicine for very specific indications. And at the time, what we realized is, listen, if we want this to become accessible for people as soon as possible, if we want this to pass and build out the nation's first program and kind of set the ground framework for what other states might copy and improve on, then we need to focus solely on the therapeutic application of psilocybin. So with that said, we went onto the campaign and we knew that our focus, our target had to be the way we tell people about psilocybin. And so what that meant is hundreds and hundreds of hours of phone banking, and we had ads on television, lots of Facebook ads, and basically all of those ads either centered on veterans, cancer patients, or medical doctors. And the main message was, this can help veterans suffering from PTSD, depression, anxiety. It can help cancer patients with end-of-life anxiety, and it can help people with treatment-resistant depression. And by focusing on that messaging, it was really swaying people that hadn't either heard of psilocybin, or their impression of it was, you know, inundated with propaganda from the last 30 years, and kind of giving it a new lens that had this medical value was enough to convince them. When we did these polls, the margin for success was really small. We didn't think we were going to win. We thought we had a chance, but we didn't, you know, we were optimistic, but we definitely didn't have any secure idea we would. And we knew we certainly would not if we were, you know, trying to explore a measure that went beyond just the medical access. With that said, one of the nuances to the Oregon bill that I think actually separates it from a medicalized model is, and this was kind of snuck into the bill, we didn't tell people this when we were going, you know, door to door or phone banking, but it was written into the bill. There's no diagnosis necessary. As long as you're 21 and over and you pass kind of the safety background checks, history of mental illness, things like that, to determine you can safely benefit, then you can access psilocybin therapy from one of these clinics. You don't need a diagnosis from a doctor or anything like that. And that, I think, is in line with the original ethos of the measure, to make this available for as many people as possible. Some of the other questions that came up as we were campaigning, and this was mainly a question from our own community, people that knew about psilocybin, people that really care about psilocybin, was how does this prevent the corporatization and monopolization of this by huge pharmaceutical corporations? And the answer was, it's directly written into the bill. No person or entity could own, and currently can own, more than 5 treatment centers and 1 manufacturing company. So there's a real limit to the amount any entity or company can become involved. That threatens the profit margins of huge corporations, and it's not even worth it for them to get into, you know, get into business with only being able to operate 5 centers. And what that looks like now, as the program is being rolled out, is there's a couple people applying for both training and treatment and manufacturing that come from, you know, kind of a larger network of funding with a farther reach. None of them on par, even remotely close to pharmaceutical companies in other arenas. But there's also a lot of grassroots organizations that were started by 2 therapists, 1 therapist, and there's room for that. There's certainly room for that. As you might expect with any new program that's started, there's some kind of bumps in the road. There's really no precedent for this. There was a 2-year deliberation process. So the first clinics are going to open next year, but over the last 2 years, they've been trying to determine basically everything. How regimented is training? Who oversees the curriculum for training? How many hours do people have to do? Everything you can imagine. They have a variety of different subcommittees. One of the things I worked on towards the end of my time on the campaign was ensuring there was an equity, diversity, and inclusion subcommittee to the general committee deciding how this is going to roll out. And so what that meant is taking ample time and discussing with experts how psilocybin therapy is going to be affordable for people from marginalized backgrounds that need this therapy. And is that going to look like mandated scholarships? How are we going to have representative therapists that can actually treat a wide variety of folks from a wide variety of backgrounds? We need therapists from a wide variety of backgrounds. How can we ensure that happens? And so doing work to ensure training programs have scholarships for folks that might not be able to afford this therapy otherwise, things like that were written into the program. And in my mind, key components of how the program could evolve over time. It started without really any equity language included in the measure at all. And as we were on the campaign doing this work, we suddenly realized, wait a second, like we need this. We can't go any farther with this being a necessity in the way we structure this bill. So I'm going to segue a little bit to my time in Canada more recently with Therasil. At Therasil, just to kind of give some background, it's an advocacy organization that works with palliative patients. Most of them have late-stage cancer diagnoses who want access to psilocybin therapy. And traditionally in Canada, the only way to do this was through a Section 56 exemption, which requires like a wait list. It takes time to be approved. The patients have to actually source the psilocybin themselves illegally. It's just the possession and treatment afterwards is no longer illegal. And through the efforts at Therasil to advocate for more fair, compassionate avenues for access for cancer patients, there's a new program, the Special Access Program, that basically allows doctors, prescribers to apply to the Canadian government, Health Canada, an equivalent to the FDA, and tell them, I have these 4 patients, 3 patients, however many patients that all meet the same criteria. Nothing's worked for them. Here's evidence that psilocybin therapy does work, 4 or 5 clinical studies. Please approve my application to treat these people. And now it works slightly better, it's approved faster, but it still falls into the same pitfall that a conversation about health and wellness is between a patient, a doctor, and a bureaucrat who's part of the Canadian government. That doesn't quite make sense to anyone on the Therasil team. I'm sure it doesn't make sense to a lot of you. And so what Therasil has been doing recently, and they just actually filed this charter challenge in the courts there to basically challenge the legality of psilocybin in the same way that cannabis was challenged in Canada, resulting in a legal federal medicalized program. And so in Canada, they're using the same lawyers that worked on cannabis and are attempting to create a regulatory framework for psilocybin therapy where patients only communicate with their doctors about psilocybin therapy and determine if it's right for them. And from there, doctors can prescribe it in a similar way as cannabis when it was first medically legal in Canada. And so that's part of what they're working on there. Obviously, there's more of a medical lens on the work I did in Canada because to apply to the government, we really had to prove that psilocybin was efficacious in these clinical settings. So it started solely with end-of-life patients, and from there it moved into treatment-resistant depression, and now we're trying to move into cluster headaches. And a big thing I worked on was addiction, trying to allow access, SAP access, the Special Access Program for folks struggling with opiate use disorder. And it's a lot harder because there aren't clinical studies that back that up yet. And people would come to us and go, okay, well, why isn't decriminalization the central focus of your organization? You can just do these therapies underground, and because it's decriminalized, perhaps the risk factor is much lower. And 1, a lot of therapists aren't willing to do that, even if it's decriminalized. And 2, it just wasn't in the scope of what Therasil was doing. That being said, there are decriminalization efforts that are happening in Canada that have succeeded. In British Columbia, if I remember correctly, I think there were 5 or 6 what were basically Schedule I drugs that are now decriminalized. For some reason, they didn't include psilocybin. They had, methamphetamine, MDMA, cocaine, all these things, and somehow left psilocybin off the list. We're quickly getting that amended because they're like, you know what, honestly, we forgot. We didn't realize. And we're like, all right, well, fair enough, as long as you fix it. But the point is, and I think this is the overarching point of what I'm saying with both of these examples, Oregon and Canada, is that incremental change will create avenues for legal access to patients that need it. And while it may not lead to whatever any individual's ultimate goal is, or any collective's ultimate goal is, it may not lead directly there. It'll slowly erode these decades of propaganda that we're up against. When campaigning on the ground in Oregon so consistently, I would go through my entire speech where I'm talking about this new breakthrough medicine can help with this, and this. And I would talk for about 5 minutes before saying the word psilocybin, and they would be so hooked, so interested. Oh, I have a friend with PTSD, this might help them. And the minute I said psilocybin, they go, what's that? And I try to contextualize it. And then the second I said mushrooms, they go, wait a second, you're talking about shrooms. This is bullshit. Like, what do you mean? I remember back in my day, I ate shrooms and I went crazy and I hated it and this and that. And so there's always going to be work to prove that the propaganda you're up against isn't the predominant case for the use of these medicines. And the best way to do that, in my mind, is through proof. Having programs to successfully treat people therapeutically with psilocybin, with LSD, with various psychedelics, and being able to point to that and show people, listen, we treated 5,000 people in the last 2 months. We saved the government however many millions of dollars in this and this arena. And that's all the proof you really need, in my mind, to start opening up the door for broader legalization. And I think the central point that I really realized during my work in Canada, working with palliative patients, is that every day you wait, every month you wait, every year you wait for the ideal bill are days, months, and years that go by for patients who don't have that long, who are desperately seeking relief, and everything else they work it hasn't worked for them. Everything they tried, it hasn't worked. So when considering the populations that would benefit from a medicalized program, when I was working in Oregon, a lot of the times I would have conversations with activists, and I'd have to kind of gently remind them that this program probably isn't for you. You probably know where to get mushrooms. You probably know where to go to have a mushroom therapeutic journey, to have a ceremony. And even if you don't, you probably know someone you could ask about. But what about your grandmother? What about your neighbor? Do they have any idea? Do they know where to start? And the answer is more often than not, no, they have no idea. And so these programs in Canada and Oregon, potentially Colorado, Washington, New York, they create opportunities for people in need of relief to find that relief, while the rest of us continue to revise and adapt and work towards ultimately a world where gifting, growing, full-scale legalization, decriminalization, all of those things can exist together. And one of the things I'm now working on is the model in Canada. The way it works is treatment can be done in patient homes. And for patients, that's oftentimes essential. There's a decentralized model where intake is centralized through the Theracil business organization, and then treatment is decentralized to different hubs all across the nation. So patients don't need to get on a plane and travel across the entire country to seek treatment. They can drive 20 minutes to a therapist and go to the therapist's house, or the therapist can come to them and go to their home. And I think that model should exist in Oregon. And so despite the Oregon legislation just now kind of being put into effect, that doesn't mean that it can't change. That doesn't mean that it can't improve. That doesn't mean that a further measure that will augment the Oregon legislation to allow for at-home treatment can't happen. And it's for that reason that I really am an advocate for incremental change with a focus on medical therapeutic access to psilocybin initially, because one, it helps deconstruct in that community. They start to see the psilocybin clinic. Their friend might go, their family member might go, people in their community might go, and they start to see from a distance or personally, if they choose to try it, that this medicine is valid, that it's valuable, and maybe in next year's round of voting, they'll support a politician, or they themselves might vote for a bill that includes gifting and growing. And so it's deconstructing that bias. That's one portion. And the other is there's thousands and thousands of patients, whether they're terminally ill patients, whether they suffer from chronic migraines, cluster headaches, whatever it may be. There are folks all across the country, all across the world that do need relief now, and they're not getting it, and they won't do it illegally. I've spoken with so many people that are desperate for relief, so many cancer patients that want this before they pass, to find some sense of clarity, and just really be able to live through the final period of their life, and they won't do it illegally. They won't take a risk. They don't want to endanger themselves. They don't want to endanger their family. They're not going to do it illegally. And so by creating these medical programs, we create access for people right away. And to me, at least, that should always be the priority, is helping folks in need find relief with medicines that we all know work. So I guess, yeah, all of this is to say incremental progress will expand access to populations that need relief and haven't experienced it otherwise. And new bills can and should be proposed to continue the advocacy process as bills are drafted, as you elect folks to pass bills, as you partner with people. I do think it is really important to draft these carefully, to choose which bills you support carefully. In Oregon, I think it was really important that there were these specific inclusions in the bill to prevent corporate takeover, to allow for lack of diagnosis and still allow folks to receive treatment just because they felt it would be personally beneficial. There's nuances you can include. Sometimes it has to be kind of subtle, but the intentionality with what you put forth is really important. But I think, in my mind, the sooner you can get a bill passed that starts to, open the floodgates towards more progress, the better. With that, that's about all I would have to say on the legislative side of things. I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm also happy to talk some about the training side of things. That's actually kind of what I've been leaning into more recently, is training psychedelic therapists and how to do it responsibly, ethically. Just, I guess, a little preface, I am more familiar with the Canadian legislation. That's what I've been working on more recently. I can answer some questions about Oregon, but I haven't been as involved in the rollout of the Oregon program, so I may not be able to answer everything in regards to Oregon.
Well, thank you, Kabir. Yeah. And Pammy is leaving. Bye, Pammy.
Nice to see you.
Yeah. All right. And Rebecca did comment. She just finished reading The Halloweener by Dav Pilkey. Sorry. So does anyone have any questions for Kabir? Anyone on the virtually have any questions? We have quite a few people online as well.
I got one. I'll jump in if that's all right.
Sure.
Kabir, thank you for all the work that you've done. Is there a place where, as we're all sort of thinking through how, as you saw earlier in the meeting with a flyer, how to communicate about these issues? And clearly you've been privy to a lot of focus groups, data, experiences and conversations. Does that information exist centralized somewhere? This is what survey data says about this issue. This is communications best practices learned over time.
It doesn't exist centrally somewhere, but it should. It really should. And I think the Healing Advocacy Fund is the name of the organization that is helping roll out in Oregon. And it's basically made up of the folks who worked on the original Oregon campaign team. And they're a really awesome organization that's going to help roll out psychedelic therapy programs, I expect, in other states. And they're also really responsive. So I think a good starting place is reaching out to folks at the Healing Advocacy Fund about specific questions related to, I guess, like the statistics and polling side of things. When it comes to messaging and communications, that was a big focus for me on the campaign. And I guess the central takeaway is, first, understanding who your audience is. Who is it that we really want to try to reach with this message? And I think a mistake a lot of folks make is trying to appeal to an audience that is already kind of ingrained in the psychedelic landscape. Those folks are probably already on your side. And if they're not, there's such a small portion of the larger demographic that by really hyper-focusing all your content on the kind of psychedelic nature of psilocybin therapy, you might be excluding folks that are more interested in learning about these medicines from a more medical perspective. And the flip side of that is also creating space in your communications to provide history of the medicine and understanding the indigenous origins of the medicine and how it's made its way from indigenous cultures into a Western perspective, and I guess the legacy of colonialism that comes with that. And I think educating folks on that is an important and necessary aspect of your communications if you're also going to be focusing pretty significantly on the medicalization of psilocybin.
Great, thank you.
So Kabir, I know in our conversations with Aaron, who is not tuned in, and I know Dennis here, he is also a religious leader. Is there anything in the Oregon legislation or in Canada that specifically addresses how people can access it for spiritual or mystical intent?
Totally. Well, in Canada, there is it's not something I ever worked on, but I know both in Canada and in different parts of the US, there are the kind of religious inclusions. In the Oregon legislation itself, no, what I will say though, is to become a therapist, they specifically created language in the measure that did not require therapists to have postgraduate degrees. You can come from a variety of backgrounds. Many of the people we worked with on the campaign who are actually advocates were reverends. And so having the support of those folks and those communities helped broaden the scope of our campaigning work, bring in people that likely wouldn't have voted yes had they not had those spokespeople. And those people are now going on to actually be therapists and will be able to open their own clinics that have, I guess, their own kind of religious take on what psilocybin therapy looks like, as long as they go through one of these state-approved training programs, and as long as their clinic meets the requirements laid out in the law, they can have their own kind of unique spin on why they're doing the therapy, how they're doing the therapy, the meaning they're trying to kind of prescribe to the medicine. And so while it's not explicitly written in, there is this kind of clear allowance for people to take that route. And similarly in Canada with Therasol, as Therasol trains people, there is a requirement for the Therasol training to have postgraduate education, but postgraduate education in the realm of divinity studies, things like that are included in the curriculum. Are included in who is allowed to take the program, and that's still a process. It's the first group of folks trained by Therasol, so it was a little bit more rigid, and there's folks to kind of expand that with more and more.
Just a follow-up question, Kabir. The state program, the state-approved training program, how high is the bar to entry? Is there a cost involved? And similar to the physical requirements of the clinic, are the bars set pretty low, or are they high?
That is one of the things that really, in just like the last month, it's been proving kind of complicated. As you might imagine, bumps in the road in the first program to do it, and they quickly realized that for these training programs to work within the structuring of the laws, they actually have to be designated as career colleges. And so prior to this realization, it was pretty low barrier to entry to start your own training program. But the application to become a career college is, I think, like $5,000 to $7,000, which for some of these folks running training programs that they're starting completely on their own without any funding isn't feasible. And so that's something that right now they're trying to figure out. How can we still include basically the mom and pop style training programs and circumvent this requirement? And so it might mean some amendments. In terms of opening a clinic, again, the barrier to entry really just relies on being able to put up funding for the property itself. There are some requirements about the space it has to be in, how far away it has to be from various different, it can't be this close to a school, or it has to be this distance from this. And so as long as you're able to kind of designate if you're able to find a space and put down the money to own that space and renovate it, that's basically the only significant financial barrier to entry to operate a clinic. I would say it's probably, most folks who don't have a background in real estate or don't have lots and lots of money sitting around would have to to certainly find some funding or maybe take out a loan or something. It would by no means be easy, but it is ideally meant to be accessible for virtually anyone who's interested in doing it.
But so a clinic has to be a dedicated, like I couldn't become a therapist and use my living room as the clinic.
Not yet. That's one of the things that I want to improve on, at least for me, at least one of my goals is to create diagnosis specific allowances. So if someone has a diagnosis that makes travel hard, then they can do treatment in the home. And I don't see any reason why that would be denied, but just because the program is just now being set up, it's a little early to make changes quite like that. But as it stands, no, it has to be in clinics that kind of meet the requirements that they've laid out.
Is there a question in the chat?
I think Linda is asking if anyone is in New York City, and I know she's out of the office this week. Let's see. Currently helping co-organize a psychedelic conference. Oh, right, in New York. Yeah, so that's okay. But I know there are people. Isn't Linda Rosenthal's staff? You guys are in New York City, right? Is that Linda? Were you asking about anything else specifically for New York?
She just expressed an interest in like getting in touch with people in the city, like to like plan more things.
Well, you know, and Kabir, you are where in New York are you when you come back to New York?
I'm in Ridgewood, New York right now, but I just got back here the other day. Yeah, but I'd be happy to connect with really anyone in the area about anything related to this. I'm always happy to build out the network.
Kabir, since we recorded this, I guess we might get some more people that want to ask you questions. Do you mind if we compile those questions and, you know, involve you?
Not
later?
at all. No, not at all. Please do. Happy to help.
Yeah.
Does anyone else have any questions? Okay. great.
Actually, I've got one. So you talked a bit about kind of incrementalism as a strategy versus just trying to get your ideal bill passed. I know that's something we've talked about here a bit. Frankly, I have a feeling that's probably a pretty common topic of debate when you're talking about activist movements. So I guess my question was, it sounded like you were mostly talking about having been involved in voter-based initiatives. And New York not being a referendum state, do you feel that impacts the, I guess, kind of ideal strategy in your mind at all?
I mean, certainly, it does make everything harder. That's the simple truth, is that if all you have to do is collect signatures, then all you're really relying on is the ideology of the state you're in. And that's really easy to change. With the education campaigns that we ran in the state, we were able to change the number of people that even knew what psilocybin was in a really significant way over the course of about 6 months. And obviously that work, the ads that you run on TV, the ads you run on Facebook has less of an impact if you were to do it in New York, because you can just go and collect those signatures. With that said, what I think my response to getting behind these sponsored bills is kind of what I touched on towards the end there. And it's carefully understanding what you're choosing to put your weight behind, and having, I guess, a couple of different, for every individual, for a group, have a couple of different, I guess, stances that you are willing to budge on, and maybe a smaller list of ones that you aren't. And so how you come up with that, you know, whether it's as individuals or you all vote together, but if you all realize, hey, we really will not support a bill that doesn't have anything specifically written into it that prevents large corporations from owning the entirety of the clinics in the entire state. We won't help you promote a bill if it doesn't have that finding those specific things that you all know that you really truly will not budge on, and then finding the other things that some people want. Yes, I really want gifting and growing, but it's really unlikely they're going to there's going to be a bill that wins with that in it. So maybe I'm willing to compromise on that one, but the other one I won't, because I don't want to see any bill advanced that doesn't have this specific thing on it. So I would say, yeah, find the things that you're flexible on and find the things that you aren't, and try to kind of consolidate those as a group, and then choose whichever kind of pieces of legislation that you really want to be proponents of based on those points of flexibility.
Thank you.
Cool. Well, great. Thanks, Kabir. We really appreciate you tuning in, and hopefully we can connect in person at some point, especially if you are hanging out in New York for a while, and we'll try to share some space soon.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much. I have to jump, but it's been a pleasure. I appreciate you inviting me out, and I appreciate all the wonderful questions.
Yeah. Great.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
We're running late. We still have a lot of announcements and a report from the legislative committee, but the other thing I wanted to say is our next meeting, we kind of love this format of having guest speakers talk to us about their experience. And Avery and I met this woman named Sutton King the other day, who is the founder of the Urban Indigenous Collective. And she's a Native American proponent of psilocybin legalization. She's amazing. And we just took a chance and invited her to come and speak at our next meeting. And so she can do it on September 13th. So if people have to leave, I wanted to make sure that folks knew that at the very least.
Yeah, hearing her story was absolutely incredible. And like, what a journey, and for her to have the attitude that she has after everything that she went through, which I'm sure she'll talk about it, but like, holy moly, she is definitely a person that commands space.
Yeah. And then we have the guy from SPORE, Matthew Duffy, who works in Colorado on legalization, is going to be in the Hudson Valley in November, and so has agreed to speak in our November meeting, which we're hoping to have in the Hudson Valley. And I don't know if anybody from the Hudson Valley is on the phone, but I have not yet written to you to ask you if we can hold our meeting there.
Yeah, I think Simon is there, I do believe.
So Simon, you're gonna be getting an email from me soon asking if we can have our next our November in-person meeting in the Hudson Valley.
So do we want to jump back and hit the other committees then quickly?
Yeah, I think so.
And let's try to keep it brief if possible, because it is already 9:20.
So the legislative committee met this afternoon. I'll just give a brief report, and then if anybody is on the Zoom that wants to chime in, I'll just say that we talked about three things. We talked about a discussion that we had with Assemblymember Burke's office, who reserved the legislative office building for us from March 20th through the 24th. And right now we have 12 tables. I put in the application, and all I said was, I think it's something like spotlight on mental health alternatives.
Beautiful.
And so we're going to be able to have 12 tables for community groups affiliated with us to come and set up whatever they want lawmakers to know about. And if we get more than 12 organizations that express interest, I'll go back and I'll beg for more tables. But we just started listing out the organizations that already we know want to put up a table, and we're already at like 10. So the lens is on there. I'm hoping that you would want to come down. But then we thought, since we have this space for 5 days, maybe not every group has to do all 5 days. Maybe we can expand it that way. So the idea would be to design a table. You get a 6-foot table, 2 chairs, an easel, and a couple of groups can get a TV with internet access to stream videos. And then it's a heavily traversed corridor.
in the legislative office building. Lawmakers generally pass by at least 4 times a day. So during the times that the legislature is in, you can display your stuff. I don't know if we can sell culinary mushrooms, maybe, we'll figure that out, but you know, you can do whatever you want with that table. And one of the questions that our legislative committee had is, does every group have to be in favor of whichever bill we're looking at? And the answer is no. It's almost like a health fair, you know?
Yeah. Is Cluster Busters on the list?
Cluster Busters is on the list. Cybin, Aaron Gnuth told us about Paths of Healing, the Darkei Rapua group, the Lens, there's a Syracuse group, Psychedelic Sisterhood, Tammy's not on, but we put it down there. We'll try to get SSDP, Mayreed, what's that one? Colleen.
Yeah, well, she was New York City Normal, right?
So maybe them, if they want it, Deep Crib Nature, Hudson Valley Psychedelic Society, I'm hoping Brooklyn Psychedelic
And I think
Society.
Sutton said that she has to talk to her people, her committee, but that urban indigenous
Right.
too would be.
Yeah, so we're already at 12, but it's a really exciting opportunity to educate lawmakers about psychedelics in general, but psilocybin alternatives to mental health. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Does anybody have any questions about that? I'll definitely put this stuff in the minutes because I know we're throwing a lot of information at you.
Could you
Yeah.
say the date one more time?
March 20th through the 24th.
Okay, thank you.
And then the other thing, of course, is like as lawmakers are considering, changing their bills for reintroduction in January. I know that we've got Juliana and Nick on the phone. The idea is, do we as a legislative committee want to find some way to meet with both Assembly Rosenthal and her staff and Assembly Member Burke to talk through exactly what Kabir said, like what are the kinds of things that we'd like to see in these pieces of legislation. And so we're going to be doing some outreach to those legislative offices and providing an opportunity for our group to weigh in and give them some suggestions as they're doing the redraft. So hopefully you're okay with that, Juliana and Nick.
Sounds good to us.
Great. And I know you mentioned meeting with Pat, with Burke's team and Rosenthal's team, but John McDonald actually came to the farm and Corinne and I met with him and he was, super excited. He'd actually just co-sponsored Pat Burke's bill.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, there's 2 additional co-sponsors to the Burke bill just over the last couple of days.
Oh, wow. So
I
it's
don't
up
know
to
what
7 or something like that?
I think it's like 6 or 7.
Wow,
sponsors now,
fantastic.
yeah.
And then I was at I'm a Scoutmaster for a Boy Scout troop, and we had 2 new Eagle Scouts graduate to the Eaglehood or whatever. And Phil Steck was there, who is an assembly member for the Albany County area. Yeah, and he ended up just standing next to me, and I asked him what he knew about psilocybin, and like we had a 20-minute conversation about like the changing landscape, and he said that he was going to look into the issue, and because I mentioned the Rosenthal's and Burke's bills, and he had no idea about any of this, and so he was it was kind of surreal talking to him dressed as my Boy Scout uniform.
Just sitting there shoveling things.
Spitting food all over me. I probably should have said that.
So I think one of the things that we're realizing is that we're moving so fast that we don't have the tools we need to actually do the work, which is why it's so important that the IT committee did the work that they did already, because we want to start getting sponsors on the Rosenthal bill and the Burke bill, but it's really hard when we don't have the outreach tools. We can do this one-on-one outreach, but for all of us to get active and do this kind of work, we need these tools.
So which segues to fundraising and finance?
Yeah, I guess so. So the fundraising and finance committee hasn't met yet, but I'm working with Eddie at the end to set up that meeting. But just like everything else, we've already started doing stuff without
the infrastructure, much to our lawyer's chagrin over there. But,
He did finger wag, he did finger wag.
we don't have any accounts set up yet, but I do want to pass around these flyers. The disc golf tournament is actually getting off the ground. So it's gonna be October 29th. And the registration's.
Probably
gonna be open-
backwards.
The registration's gonna be open, September 1st for that.
And then coming sooner.
Coming sooner, we're having some live music at my house in Lansingburg. And the artist has agreed to share the proceeds. The artist has agreed to share the proceeds with NYPAC. So, you know, I hope you can come. I hope you can invite people. There's some suggested donations on the back. I suggested that if somebody really wants to make this happen in New York, they can make a donation of $10,000. But, you know, you don't get unless you ask, so.
Right. Well, in the, because this stack, no, what's the specific app that would communicate to everybody?
Discord.
No.
No,
The-
the Spartan. No.
The button.
Oh, right, I mean, yeah, I mean, the biggest thing about the finance and fundraising committee is that the tool that we need to get people to take action, which is basically if you click a button and you want to send a note to all lawmakers or to just your own lawmakers, it's gonna cost us $15,000. So we need to start raising some money to get that up and running. Yeah, is that all you wanted to say about that?
Yeah. And then, let's see, so that kind of covered the events as well. And just as something that we're to look forward to 2023, we hope, Corinne and I have been meeting with, what's the acronym stand for? It's CCIAC, it's a circus.
It's, I don't even know.
I emailed them the other day.
The CCIAC?
Yes, I emailed them the other day. And Aaron Marquise responded to me.
Yeah.
And he said that he's interested, but it's really busy. They're busy right now. It's like their busiest season. So they're gonna he wants to touch base in the fall. And he said that it's something like if they were gonna work with us, it's something that the board would have to talk about.
Oh, well, we've already been meeting with Leanne Kowalski.
Yeah.
And we've actually started kind of putting a show together.
Okay, yeah, because I told him about like you guys. I told him about you and Corinne and Amy, but I guess he,
Okay.
I don't know.
Well, yeah, but so, and Leanne dialed us into two people in Boston area, right? They were from Massachusetts somewhere, Miles and
I
Mandy.
think they were in Boston, but they've been in New York too.
So they actually had started a theater or a circus performing group called Hyphae. And so they all their acts were mushroom inspired. And so we started brainstorming, and really like the ideas that we started coming up with sound like it's going to be a phenomenal piece. And so, you know, whether that's like, and you know, with a bent toward emphasizing on community and mental health. And so the pieces will all focus on like, you know, some struggle and overcoming some struggle or something like that, or connecting people. And so it could be a standalone, doesn't have to be advocacy kind of act, but it also could be like, we're putting this piece on as a way to help spread awareness about like these various things.
So the target is really fall 2023.
Yeah. So even if the bills pass and we get everything we want with it before then, we're still putting the show together.
Wait, is the events meeting too? Is there?
Oh, Linda.
Oh, that's Linda. Oh, right, that's Linda too. Okay, great.
Also, I did a Zoom call last week with everyone in the events committee.
Cool.
And we were talking about, I think Corinne, you asked if we were gonna do like a launch party.
Yeah, I think it would be great to think about a launch party.
Yeah, so we were talking about that. Amy, Meg, and I, and Sarah joined in like for the end of it. But we decided that we were going to like kind of brainstorm some stuff and like talk about, you know, like possible ideas like for like what a launch party would look like. And we like just discussed like some things, like would we want it to be like a public thing, like for anyone who wants to come, and then it would like end up being kind of informational, or would it just be like a social thing for, you know, everyone to just kind of like hang out?
So Sarah mentioned something in the city, and we have like Buffalo representatives. What if we did like a simultaneous multi-city like launch thing that we could run through Discord and have screens that like showed what people were doing in these other cities, and that could show the network like that is being created.
You know what that makes me think of? That I don't know if people are familiar with that episode of The Office where they're having like the party and they like invite Michael. Anyway, yeah, that could work. Amy mentioned New Scotland Spirits and Indian Ladder Farms, and Meg said that like, Megan said, is there a way like we could collect money like at the launch party possibly, like, and what would that look like? And so I asked, remember Raj, she was at the, I asked him if he would be up for doing like a glass blowing like demo or whatever, and he said he's totally in for that. So, and then I talked to Oliver, Primo Oliver, and he said that he is cool to do like a chocolate thing. Yeah,
and I think, and if we could like just as I'm brainstorming about this multi-city thing, because again, to just mention the MPAC experience, we did a live experimental jazz performance with a festival in Brazil, a festival in Montreal, and here in Troy. Now, granted, no one was trying to play together. It was like, kind of things. So the lag didn't really matter so much. But it was, it was amazing to see performers, in those thousands of miles difference. And like, I think we could have it, like, if we could find some people in the like Finger Lakes region that would want to throw up a computer and have, even if it's in a room this big, it doesn't really matter. And then people could, through Discord, like be able to chat and check things out. And so it could not only be, maybe that's when we launch the Discord to the public. So it could be, here's this personal like live thing, and we're all gathering, but it's also join us through Discord. So people that aren't local could like, oh, I'm tuning into this Discord thing, and I'll be able to like see what's going on in New York and Buffalo and Troy. And, that way it's like not only in those 3 locations, it can be wherever.
That's a neat idea.
So Linda, make that happen.
For what it's worth, my drummer's in Binghamton, in Croton, and my bass player's in Binghamton.
Those are good areas.
Who's your bass player?
I'm kidding.
You know Chuck.
For 40 years.
Do you know Steve? Did you know Steve? Yeah, we're friends with Steve.
But
We know Steve, I'm acquainted with Chuck, so.
That would be cool. We could do a performance.
Small world. So we got music, we got everything.
Honestly, I was gonna say, if you wanted to get together and do some stuff, maybe try some pickle mushers we could sell there, things like that. We've got access to a commercial kitchen. We could have some fun trying stuff like that to sell while we're there, to do fundraising as well, because I have to be super careful about where I participate. But I'm pretty sure I can get away with like helping prep work, making things like that, setting up events.
I just cannot under any circumstances whatsoever go in front of a legislature or they wouldn't let me and fire me.
So Linda, was there anything else that you wanted to report from the events committee?
No, I mean, I don't know if Amy has anything to say. If not, it's
I
okay.
remember Maggie had mentioned like a possible bake sale, but that could kind of tie in with like the foods and the different things. And even now we've been sort of like some silent auction type of stuff. You know, you have little baskets out, maybe Oliver does a cool chocolate one, or the New Scotland Spirits has like, you know, like a little whiskey sample or something. Yeah, or a bunch of colors and mushrooms, you know.
Actually, like a tasting menu of some sort, like different preparations or something, it would be very easy to do, you pay like $15-20 a plate, whatever, you know, it's going to cost. And then you come in, you get this small plate of items, maybe we can get some local ciders or something, you know.
There's maybe a ladder or something.
Yeah,
Or I
and then
think
New Scotland Spirits.
Yeah, Dieter wants to help.
Yeah,
Right.
Dieter
Yeah.
at Indian Ladder said that he would be more than happy to host us, like
Right,
something
he is
for events
the
or
farm
whatever.
for the venue.
I have several people I know who know Dieter and have played there and
Yeah,
all
yeah.
at the farm.
Yeah,
I've done a lot of these kinds of fun, as a chef and a musician, I've got some experience doing events that
Yeah.
combine food and music and fundraising and,
That's-
so.
Well, I mean, it's a fairly classic
Yeah.
human experience, is we're going to have food and we're going to have music and we're going to have some kind of psychoactive substance and we're all gonna fall asleep early, so.
Awesome. So, yeah, I'm super jazzed. I mean, not that I was not as before. I can see that happening, and I like that's really exciting.
We also wanted to decide like when we thought it should happen. Like between the thing that's going on that Corinne mentioned and the disc golf, like would it be possible, do you think, to do in between then, or
pretty soon.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
It really depends on how quickly we can roll out Discord and kind of understand how it works and get Sarah or someone else, multiple people in New York to because I don't think Sarah's in Brooklyn, so like maybe Brooklyn Psychedelic Society or Pamir or whatever could host something. You know, we could do something, you know, wherever all of the people in our network could have, even if it's only 5 people in a room, it really doesn't matter how, like, because at that point, if we're connecting through the network, the mycelial network that we're kind of creating, that's almost more interesting than kind of gathering everyone in one space, I think.
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, after a year and a half of isolation. It's really nice to be around.
Yeah, oh, no, 100%.
I will say that we are hitting a real sweet spot for weather here in the next month and a half. Especially if you're gonna wanna do something outdoors or where it might spill outdoors depending. So if that takes into consideration, because as we all know, after about the middle of October, it is a crapshoot on what's going to happen on the weekend.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll talk to Dieter. I mean, I'm gonna see him tomorrow, so like I can see if there's anything early October, maybe.
Although, do you remember what's October and an apple orchard? No.
Oh, no.
But it's possible, but I mean, that's probably the like pivotal time for that.
Right.
Just thinking.
Well, stuff to
Yeah.
work on.
Yeah, we'll
Yeah.
talk to them.
The fairground in Altamont might be open and well, they have a nice pavilion, and when they're not actively having the fair, that might be
That's a good idea.
that would be
Yeah,
approachable.
that's a great idea. Yeah, it doesn't have to have Wi-Fi or whatever. We could make a hotspot, right? Have people make a hotspot.
I mean, I can broadcast from my phone, so.
Dennis, do you think that people in Buffalo would participate in something like this? And do you think
Yeah.
early October is reasonable to
Yeah.
organize by then?
Absolutely. Yeah, and I'm gonna see a lot of folks from the Western New York Psychedelic Society this Friday. So we're having a movie night over there.
Cool.
So I'll let them know that something's brewing here.
Oh, please, yeah, because we've tried to get them back since that mushroom symposium. We haven't been able to
Okay,
connect.
So
Great,
if you can help the architect.
I'll shake the tree there. Yeah.
Shake the tree. Good, good.
Are there any other announcements that people have?
I think, well, the only other thing on the agenda was a NYMA update, but I think it's just a matter of like, we're close to getting the operating agreement, which will open up the bank account, which then will segue into finalizing everything, being able to take money and actually do all this.
Yeah, I think the step before the bank resolution is, we have to amend the bylaws, and then we have to invite people to the board. And we've invited those people, but we have to officially. So.
There's a bunch of ducks we need to get in a row. There's a bunch of structural things and with the financing, stuff like that, we gotta set up some controls in place and some internal auditing mechanisms and stuff. And things will go on with that, but we can discuss that later.
Is there some kind of official sign up, or how do you become a member?
We have a membership agreement that we'll send to you. We'll send it out with the next 7 minutes for anybody who hasn't signed up as a member yet.
Yeah, now, when are we going to, because, well, everyone was founding members, and now moving forward, everyone can become a member?
Yeah, I mean, I was hoping that we would have a button on the website at some point with the.
With that form, okay, cool.
I think until we have that, we can have founding members.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. Let's see. There's 8 chats now. Did I miss anything? When did NYMA adopt NYPAC? We haven't officially joined forces. So yeah.
It's imminent.
It is imminent. October 15th. Beck says, is National Mushroom Day.
Oh, no.
Are you kidding?
So
maybe
to work so I can wear a hat to work.
it's a Saturday. Okay, so Bex, I think if you're still on here, that's genius. That's got to be one of
I
those.
think we might have just gotten late whether we like it or not.
Celebrate Mushroom Day with us.
Wow. Awesome. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Why?